NBA Youngboy has recently pled guilty to a crime that might see him serve nearly 10 years in prison, while his fellow rapper Blueface, he's already been convicted to a crime that would see him locked up for years and years to come. All the men I just mentioned right now have very successful rap careers, but even more important, they've got kids. Well, some more than others. But why not will these rappers throw away their lives for some dumb street cred? Well, that's what we're looking at today. Rappers who ruin their careers and their lives with dumb crimes. Starting with the dumbest one of them all, Blueface. On October the 8th, 2022, Blueface and some friends were at an event at the Euphoric Gentlemen's Club, which is a strip club on the Las Vegas Strip. And this was when he was recognized by a man named Cantavius Trailer. The man would approach Blueface and make a joke about how he saw him earlier that night talking to some females while he was in a cheap ugly car. And I guess Blueface and his team didn't find the joke funny, so they decided to beat him up for it. Somehow, Trailer managed to get out of the club and run into his pickup truck. Blueface apparently thought that Trailer was going in to get a gun, so he decided to shoot first. Cantavius' truck would be struck by gunfire multiple times, with one bullet even striking his left hand. Things would remain quiet for about a month or so, until Blueface was caught on camera being arrested by undercover police officers.
Here, yo, that's Blueface. The undercover cops just pulled up on him, bro. They got him. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Look, that's Blueface right there.
Not long after, he would officially be charged with attempted murder, but because of his good legal team, he managed to bag a plea deal that would see him plead guilty to lesser charges, which were battery and discharging a firearm at an occupied structure. He would be sentenced to 3 years probation, and his requirements were that he should have no use of alcohol or drugs including marijuana, staying out of the Las Vegas Strip and downtown corridors unless he has a work application or other legitimate basis to be there, attending impulse control counseling, having no contact with the victim of the shooting, and having full-time employment. Blueface not getting any prison time didn't sit well with his victim, because he got so mad in court that he decided to start taking selfies with Blueface. Even though Blueface got away with attempted murder in this case, it wasn't the end of his troubles, as the club where the shooting took place would eventually sue him. The judge in the case would side with the club and ordered Blueface to pay them $12.6 million in lost revenue, $198,000 in lease damages, $84,000 in payroll expenses to laid-off employees, you gotta feed the hoes, and more to the club's owner. But since he got probation, Blueface was still allowed to go out and do his shows so that he could try to make all the money he owes them. But Blueface managed to fuck that up too. The main requirement of Blueface's probation was that he had to stay out of trouble, no matter what, but he didn't listen. Blueface's girlfriend Krishan Rock would tell him that she wanted to go party it up in Vegas one more time, but because of his probation, he couldn't go back there unless it was for work. And after his manager Wack 100 specifically told him that he could not go back there, Krishan decided to clown him by calling him a pussy.
I told him to stay out of Vegas. We were fighting the attempted murder. Wasn't supposed to go. Came out, we did the Floyd thing. That was work. Got him right back out of there. And I guess a week later, because he not gonna tell me, think she wanted to go to Vegas. He tells her, Wack told me I need to stay out of Vegas. Case going on. She hits him with the, is that your daddy type shit. Instead of him like not.
Blueface would then stupidly follow his girlfriend to Sin City, and while they were back there, fans would recognize them both, and they started clowning Blueface immediately.
He ended up going back to Vegas, and Rock, it was a fan, because I watched the whole video footage. It's a fan that said, Rock, we love you, but we hate him. Pointing at Blueface.
This led to a minor altercation that led to Blueface snatching a phone off a girl. All he wanted to do was delete the footage that proved he was there, since he didn't want to get into any trouble with his parole officers. But the joke was on Blueface, because even though he gave the girl her phone back, he was later accused of robbery, which violated his parole, and this would lead to him going back to prison. Although the robbery charges were soon dropped, he would still have to answer for his probation violation. His dad would take to Instagram to announce the judge's decision.
Good afternoon, y'all. Y'all can probably tell the results by the way I look. I gave him 4 years.
Blueface would be sentenced to 4 years in prison, but because he's already been locked up for a while now, he won't have to serve the full 4 years, unlike the next man on our list, NBA Youngboy. In the middle of April 2024, NBA Youngboy was arrested on drugs and weapons charges. This was very weird at the time because Youngboy was already on house arrest, and what crimes could you possibly commit while you're on house arrest? Well, identity theft. NBA Youngboy allegedly impersonated multiple people in order to maintain prescription drugs such as promethazine with codeine. On September 19, 2023, Reed's Pharmacy in Hiram, Utah received a call from an elderly woman named Bethel White. As the pharmacy did their checks, they found out that the prescription had all the valid information belonging to the physician that made that prescription. But something was fishy about the phone number that the patient called in from. So the staff at Reed's Pharmacy decided to dig a little bit deeper, and when they found the actual number of the physician who was named on the prescription, they contacted him about it, and he said that he had never made any prescription to a pharmacy in Hiram. And what was even more suspicious is that he said that he never even had a patient by the name Bethel White. He further told the Reed staff that they weren't the first ones to call him because he had been receiving multiple calls regarding the same situation. So with all this weird stuff going on, the Reed Pharmacy staff decided to get the police involved. Police officers would be staged at the parking lot of the pharmacy to try and apprehend anyone who would try to pick up the prescription, but no one turned up. This wasn't the only time this fraud happened though, because later on the same day at Spencer's Pharmacy in Logan, a person would order the same prescription using the same physician's information, but this time under the name Gwendolyn Cox instead of Bethel White. About 2 weeks after the prescription was called in, it would be picked up by an unnamed female. The female claimed that Gwendolyn Cox was her grandmother. 1 month later, on October 9th, another prescription was ordered from the same physician trying to prescribe promethazine to the same patient, Gwendolyn Cox. But the pharmacists were getting a little bit suspicious. The pharmacy called the real physician and he denied filing the prescription and told them that his name was being used for fraud. Fast forward to January 2024, another prescription was called in, but this time to Larry's Pharmacy in Smithfield. The prescription was called in by a person posing to be the same physician for a patient named Gwendolyn Cox yet again. The order did not change. It was the same prescription of promethazine with codeine. The pharmacist at Larry's Pharmacy found the call weird because when he tried to call them back, they didn't even respond. So when he searched up the practice and found the actual doctor listed on the prescription, he said he doesn't even have a patient named Gwendolyn, and whoever made the call to him was a fraud because this has happened many times before to him. The pharmacy had enough of these shady calls, so they decided to hatch a plan to nab whoever came in to collect the prescription. Two different women who were known to have a connection with NBA Youngboy would come in and claim the medication. They both were later arrested for the investigation, but surprisingly, someone would try to get everything cleared up, and it was none other than Gwendolyn Cox, except she doesn't exist. It was actually NBA Youngboy calling, pretending to be an old woman. When speaking to the officer, Gwendolyn couldn't even provide her age. Gwendolyn would also refuse to give the officer her address, even though she was willing to fill in one for her fake prescription. But the worst part of all this was that the officer quickly realized that the voice was being faked. The officer said that Gwendolyn sounded like a much younger male from the South. This was made even more clear when Gwendolyn would use the word ax instead of ask, which is common talk for people who are mostly from the South in places such as Louisiana. And if that didn't prove that Youngboy was involved with the two women, when they were confronted by the police, they were in a white Chevy Tahoe, which was registered to a man named Kentrell Golden, who happens to be NBA Youngboy himself. The police officers would also ask the women if they could search the vehicle, to which they agreed to. During the search, police would find multiple marijuana flakes and an empty gun case for a 1911 .45 caliber. When one of the women was asked who she was picking up the prescription for, she said it was for a woman named Deborah Cox. It seemed like she was not good at lying because the prescription said it was for a Gwendolyn Cox. When the women were arrested, the SUV was taken to an impound lot, so NBA Youngboy tried to get it back, but the impound yard connected him with the investigating officers. The investigators on the case ended up speaking to him directly on the phone when he confirmed that the two men in custody actually did have his permission to take the car because they were family. The investigators summed up that because of the amount of meds NBA and his crew were allegedly obtaining, it was enough for distribution, and this was good enough for a judge to grant the investigators a search warrant. Multiple agents would storm into NBA Youngboy's home and search the place for whatever they could find. Some officers would even interview Youngboy while the search took place. He was asked if he had any firearms on the property, and he said that only one belonging to his wife, which he did not have any access to. But during the search, police would find the gun inside his closet, where he definitely would have had had access to it. During the search, the team would also find a prescription bottle which was identified to be Youngboy's, but the bottle was prescribed for a woman named Caroline White, which was a name that was also used to get the prescription meds. All this proof was finally enough to charge NBA Youngboy with 20 counts of identity fraud, 20 counts of forgery, and 20 counts of procuring a drug prescription. Youngboy would be arrested and even spotted in court looking happier than you'd expect. But on the 20th of August 2024, things would take a dramatic turn as NBA Youngboy would decide to plead guilty on conditions that his case be moved from Louisiana to Utah. But the case he pled guilty to was not the drug fraud case. It was actually for federal weapons charges, which was a case he had been fighting earlier and the case that eventually led to him being on house arrest. While NBA Youngboy has officially decided to plead guilty, he has not done it before court yet. Therefore, he does not have a proper sentencing date. But to be honest, it doesn't even really matter when he gets sentenced, because what we definitely know is that he will not see his platoon of kids for a very long time, while the next man on our list promises that he is a changed man and vows to be a good father. While NBA Youngboy got in trouble with the FBI for gun charges, his affiliate Quando Rondo would be nabbed on federal drug charges. On December 8, 2023, Quando was taken into custody for drug conspiracy and participating in criminal street gang activity. Quando would plead not guilty and he would be released on a $100K bond. But this wasn't even the beginning, because earlier in that same year, he got booked with a RICO that got him and multiple other men arrested. Now, I'm sure most of you rap fans know that a RICO case is not something that you'd want any of your favorite rappers to go through, just like at Young Thug and the YSL case, or more recently, the O-Block RICO that got 6 members convicted, which we'll get to in a second. But first, let's look into Quando's case. He was accused of being a leader in the Rolling 60s gang and distributing marijuana. His charges were 2 counts of violating the Controlled Substances Act, 1 count of illegally using communication facilities, 1 count violating the Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act, and the court papers also alleged that on June 4th, 2023, Quando and other affiliates would travel to Macon, Georgia to pay a source for a supply of marijuana once again. But like I said earlier, he wasn't the only man nabbed. Other suspects were Tremaine Grant, Samuel Humans, Angelo McNair, and several others. As mentioned earlier, Quando would get his $100K bond, but if he thought he would start behaving, you'd be wrong. Because in the beginning of December, he was arrested yet again. This time, he was pulled over by police and taken into custody. But it wasn't for traffic violation, no, because he wasn't even the one driving. He was accused of being part of a conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute controlled substances such as meth, fentanyl, cocaine, and marijuana. His bad decisions wouldn't end there, because on the 6th of February 2024, he would be arrested yet again, this time for a DUI crash that happened in July the 16th the previous year. It was said that a witness would spot Quando speeding right before he crashed into another car. And when emergency services made their way to the scene, they had to give him Narcan because he was showing signs of an overdose. Prosecutors would try to get his bond revoked because of this incident, but the judge decided not to revoke it, but rather modify his bond conditions so that he wouldn't be able to drive and he would regularly have to go through drug screenings to make sure he was always sober. Not to forget that he also had to pay $47,000 in bond to get released. Quando was now facing 3 major cases all at the same time, and it looks like the pressure finally got to him.
Our top story at 6, Taekwon Bowman, better known as the Savannah rapper Quando Rondo, pleading guilty to a federal drug charge in court. He now could face a sentence of up to 5 years in prison.
Quando would change his initial plea deal from not guilty to guilty. This means he would not have to serve the near 20-year sentence he would have received if found guilty by the court. Instead, he is now facing only 5 years for that federal case. Quando claims that he is a changed man and is sorry for his mistakes.
You know, I just want everybody to know, man, I'm a changed person. I'm changing every day, and God got the last say so. I really want to give an apology to the city of Savannah, and I want to give an apology to my family, friends, loved ones, most of all to my daughter. I'm changing myself. It starts with yourself. Change starts at home first.
His sentencing date is scheduled for December the 12th, 2024, but till then, the judges agreed to let him remain out on bond till that date. But while Quando is free right now, the next man on our list is currently serving time for snitching on himself in music videos. I got my own fire, don't need security in the club. Those are the lyrics of Pooh Shiesty's song Back in Blood, and I can testify for a fact that he wasn't lying. Back in June 2021, Pooh Shiesty got booked for a club shooting. The shooting happened at the King of Diamonds, which is a strip club in Miami. Shiesty had just finished up his shows and was being escorted out by the guards, but that's when one of the attendees of the show grabbed a few hanging stacks from his back pocket. Shiesty got mad and decided to get back on stage to see who tried to pickpocket him. The situation would eventually escalate to a point where an angry Pooh Shiesty would whip out a firearm and shoot a security guard in the ankle. But that was just the beginning of the rapper's troubles, as he would be indicted a week later for staging a deal that got a man shot up in the ass. Yeah man, the ass. In October 2020, Pooh Shiesty and some friends drove into the parking lot of the Bay Harbor Islands Hotel in a lime green rented McLaren. The group was soon joined by other men who came in with a black Maybach. The men initially met up for a drug deal where Pooh Shiesty was trying to buy some one off of them and also get some high-end sneakers in the process. Things would escalate with the group of men getting into an argument, and this is when shots were fired. Two men would later be hospitalized and Pooh Shiesty would later be arrested. It was easy to tie Shiesty back to the crime because, for starters, while trying to get away, he dropped a Louis bag with $40K in cash, which was later tied back to him. And in his song Gone MIA, he would flaunt the same bright green McLaren in his music video. Not to mention that he would also post pictures with it on social media. Shiesty would eventually agree to a plea deal that saved him from getting a near-life sentence. And on Wednesday, the 20th of April 2020, Pooh Shiesty was sentenced to 5 years in prison. If he is to serve the full sentence, we will not see Pooh Shiesty until July 2027. But the last man on our list is never gonna be arrested for his crimes because he's dead. King Von. If King Von was still alive today, he would be in prison for at least 2 known murders, one of them being the murder of a woman named Gakira Barnes. In July 2021, Chicago police would release unsealed documents confirming that King Von killed a known gangster who was shot 9 times. But I'm not gonna say that could have ruined his career since it was before the fame, but the next murder wasn't, because before he died, King Von was involved in the murder of a famous rapper. But you gotta watch this video for more on that story. But before that, please don't forget to subscribe if you made it this far.